everyone. Welcome back to today's episode. We have a juicy week of episodes for you guys. You're going to have this one all about reconnecting back to your intuition, which you guys have been asking for quite a while. So I'm glad I'm finally able to give it to you. And then on Friday, you also have a little bit of a life update episode as well, which you guys need. There is so much going on. I can't even put it into like an Instagram post, an email. It's just too much. I'm going to just explain it. So you also have that coming on Friday, which is going to be really fun as well for you to tune into. Okay, reconnecting to your intuition. As a woman connected to her intuition, you feel a level of self-trust and self-discernment that you just don't get access to when you aren't connected to you. So many of us become disconnected for various reasons, but one of the big ones that I see that really proliferate, my God, that word is always, but woo, it really does proliferate the fear that women can feel trusting themselves is birth, is the medical system. You go to a doctor, and even just before I was watching a reel, and this woman was talking about how she was just like, she had a miscarriage. She was fully dismissed by her doctor, like nothing was wrong, blah, 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 blah. And it just made her miscarriage grieving even worse. So many of us, like me included, I'm sure you have as well, have had the experience of going to the doctor's office or going somewhere and just basically being dismissed for how we're feeling or for our symptoms or for like this intuitive feeling that we have inside of us. A lot of us also then, are aware of this. It's from my research, it's a lot better in Australia and Europe. But in the US, the birthing process, like I don't even know what to fucking call it. It's a mess. It's very much like they want to intervene, drugs, like you need to go to a hospital. It's unsafe to do it at home. Like a woman's body doesn't know what she's doing. I'm sure you guys all saw, maybe you didn't, but there was like a viral reel that went around maybe a month ago of an OBGYN basically saying that women are not made to give birth and like we don't know what we're actually doing and it's not safe to do it at home and all this kind of stuff. And it was just fear mongering. And that kind of stuff further disconnects us from what we know in the core of our body is true, what feels right. The biggest thing that we dismiss within ourselves as women that I've noticed is what actually makes us safe. What actually makes you safe? Because what makes one person safe can often not be the same for the other person. And we then think that like, because we're the like woo woo one or alternative one, that even like we then don't trust what makes us safe. So for example, on the birthing thing, you might feel like I feel safest giving birth at home. But because your whole friend group or because somebody else or on Instagram you see somebody like shitting on home births or saying how dangerous that is, you then start to question yourself because we are intuitive as women and we're also all very energetic human beings and we take in that information, it gets stored in our energy field, and now we're thinking that person's thoughts from Instagram that we don't even know, and we're making them like the truth and what we should believe in, and we start second guessing ourselves. When we start second guessing ourselves, we lose trust in ourselves and we don't listen to our intuition. We start to like weaken that muscle of listening to those gut feelings. We all know what that gut feeling feels like, what that intuitive feeling feels like, all that like heart pull. We know what it feels like, but we start to overanalyze it because we are worried that listening to that and trusting that when we feel it is going to lead to like the wrong decision, or we're going to make the wrong decision. And if we make the wrong decision, we're then going to get ridiculed. People are going to think less of us. We're going to think less of ourselves. People are going to shame us or reject us. We get so worried about getting hurt, essentially, whether it's because we hurt ourselves or whether it's because somebody else hurts us. But we become so worried about getting hurt that we think the better option is not listening to ourselves and listening to somebody else, because if something went wrong, at least we can blame the other person. We don't want to blame ourselves. And this is the funny piece, because the wrong thing is never going to happen when you're listening to your intuition. According to your ego, it might be the bad thing happened, quote unquote, the wrong thing happened. But you're seeing that through the lens of your ego. You're seeing that through the lens of like comparison. You're thinking you made the wrong decision. But in actual fact, you'll figure out 3 years later that if you didn't make that quote unquote wrong decision, you now wouldn't have met this person or be in this place in your life or living in this amazing city and having all these gorgeous friends. That's what we don't realize. We think like we don't zoom out and think big picture. We like micro analyze ourselves and think because it didn't work out this fairy tale way and how it was quote unquote meant to, it was the wrong decision. You guys have been absolutely loving the masterclasses that I've been putting on, which makes me really happy because I've also been loving giving them to you. I've been loving creating them. And it's just like a different, I feel like it's similar to a podcast. Honestly, like every episode of the podcast is its own little masterclass in and of itself. But what I like about the masterclasses is I give you guys a visual and I also feel like I'm talking to somebody rather than just talking to myself. And with that being said, even though I know there's like thousands of you, tens of thousands of you, well, we're up to millions actually, listening to the episode and to each episode, it just feels really nice when we're in a room together. The chat is open, the energy is flowing. It's a vibe. Anyway, with that being said, I have another masterclass coming out, and this one is the blueprint to feminine embodiment. So I'm not going to go too into what the class is about because you can just click the link below, register, read about the class, see if it's a fit for you and whatnot. But what I am excited to really discuss is the foundational needs that are so essential in order for you to actually be that woman that you want to be in your feminine with ease. A lot of the stuff that we see on social media, you guys have had me say it before on the podcast, it's aloof, it's fluffy, it's really not grounded, and it adds things to our to-do list. It makes us think that we actually just need to fit into another box and do other things in order to quote unquote be feminine. And my approach to really being the most feminine version of you as a woman is being you and healing anything that is causing blocks that are stopping you from feeling safe to be the fullest version of you. Now, this masterclass is obviously for women, but that being said, men can definitely come and you can just switch a lot of what I'm saying more to the masculine side of things because we are going to talk a lot about trauma and how that then relates to the feminine embodiment piece, as that's one component of my blueprint. And then maybe you can like log off when we get to like the feminine stuff, or you can learn a bunch about your woman, which would also be really helpful for you. So, as a quick little recap of what we are going over, and you can read the rest on the website page, is why safety is important. The importance of firstly healing your relationship with the masculine and trauma around the masculine, redefining what it means to be in your feminine, how life becomes a dream when you're in your magnetic feminine, and we are going to do a live Q&A. I reckon this masterclass will probably be a good hour and a half, if not two. I really want to actually, I did a Q&A at the end of the Becoming Her one. And then I was like, damn, I wish I did a longer one. Like, why did I need to cut that off short? And I was worried about people not watching all the way to the end. And then I realized, well, the ones that do, the ones that like are going to watch all the way to the end are going to get so much value from those Q&As. So we're also going to do a juicy Q&A at the end. So make sure you come live as well. And all the details for the masterclass and registering for it are in the link below. And I hope to see so many of you there. I really want you guys to listen to this nugget. I was saying it maybe in one of the recent manifestation episodes, but I want to like clip this for a podcast. So sorry, for an Instagram clip as well. So, because this goes for the trusting yourself as well. You can only see what is possible for you and like the right and wrong based on what is within your reticular activating system, like based on what you've seen before. So, you've trusted your intuition with something and it didn't work out how you wanted it to work out. You only know the possibilities of how it could work out positively through what you can currently see in your life is possible for you. And that's limited, by the way. That's why I'm like, scroll Pinterest. It's limited because you only know what you know. So you are saying the wrong thing happened or I made the wrong decision based on what you can see currently in your awareness as the quote unquote right decisions. So that's you getting into your head, you analyzing, you kind of seeing things through your ego essentially and through a very limited lens of the world and of the possibilities for you. When you open up your awareness, and so basically you just start to actually trust, right? You trust yourself, you trust the universe, or you trust God. When you open up your vision like that and you actually realize, you know what, I don't even know what the right thing or the wrong thing is because most of the possibilities I can't even see right now. So I'm not even going to try to see what was right or wrong because that's going to be a very limited lens of the world. So when you then open up and essentially like let go of your lens, now you've opened up and your reticular activating system isn't only seeing what you have told it to see because that's what you're always looking at. You've opened up. You aren't trying to find or see the right decision or the wrong decision or what you should have done or what you like and what, you know, what's happened as a result of you not doing that. You've now opened up your lens And you're now seeing these beautiful possibilities for yourself. Or now what you realize is, you know what? This didn't happen how I like planned for it to happen, but I bet you in a year's time, this is going to make sense. And then in a year's time or in 3 years' time, you look back and you're like, you actually can connect the dots because you can only connect the dots going backwards, not forwards. If you keep your lens of the world very limited, your reticular activating system is only seeing what is in that limited lens versus if you open up your lens and release control, that helps to open up your lens. You release control and you start trusting yourself, and therefore you trust the universe, God, whatever. By opening up your lens, now these things can pop into your life, these like blessings, these moments where you would not have seen them before if you had that limited lens of the world on. So just remember that with what I'm saying today. Like, we limit ourselves when we like compare to what our ego thought should have happened, when we make the quote unquote wrong decision that we were being led to from our intuition. That was a bit wordy, but you might need to re-listen to that, but hopefully that made sense. So you can never make the wrong decision from your intuition, because your ego might think it's the wrong decision, but actually it's the right decision. And you will be able to feel that and know that with an open, expanded, like limitless lens of the world and view of the world and the universe, rather than only looking at what you know is possible. And often we only look at what we know is possible via like because of the blueprint that we were given from our parents. You can have blueprints for everything. You have a blueprint for like your relationship to the feminine, a blueprint for like romantic relationships, a blueprint for friendships, a blueprint for money, a blueprint for success, a blueprint for parenthood. So when you are just living out the blueprint that you're given, it's very limited. You're like, well, I fucked this up and the only other possibility is this. And you think that's the only other possibility because you are looking through the lens of your blueprint, rather than actually realizing that you live in like an unlimited world with an unlimited possibilities, and you'll be able to figure it out if something like really quote unquote bad happened. And so often, like sometimes, like so often we need that quote unquote bad thing to happen in order for so many other beautiful things to happen. Like I was saying in a recent episode, I needed my ski accident to happen in order for all these other things to happen in my life. Like I know that without a shadow of a doubt. But that ski accident was a quote unquote bad thing. But hence, 8, 9 years later, has it been that long? Maybe 7 years later. Jesus. 7 years later, I can look back and I can be like, wow, that was not a bad thing at all. That was like, it was meant to happen that way. I followed my body's urges and the chick ran into me, and I thought that like a bad thing happened. But looking back, I can actually realize that no, it wasn't fun by any means. It's been the hardest journey I've had to go through, but it has brought me so much that I would not have without that ski accident. Okay, going on. So what I was saying before is the safety piece. We are very disconnected from our bodies as women because of a lack of internal safety. Internal safety comes from boundaries, speaking your truth, feeling safe to say no, feeling safe to just speak what's on your mind, feeling safe in being able to speak and not be worried about getting abandoned, knowing that you've always got your own back and you're not going to abandon yourself. That is such a big one. Like not abandoning yourself, not conditionally loving yourself, but instead unconditionally loving yourself. That is what creates internal safety. When you have that internal safety, you don't then feel the need to get safety from other people or externally all the time. That becomes like the cherry on top. Beautiful. Your man's giving you safety. Your man's grounded your nervous system. Amazing. We love that. But you are not dependent on it. You actually can learn to feel grounded, regulated, safe, secure, confident, etc. within yourself, for yourself, by yourself, and everything else is the cherry on top. Doesn't mean you become a hyper independent woman. That's not what I'm saying. I think you guys know that. It's just, it's like this really grounded feeling that you have in your body. You still ask for help. You have an open heart. You're receiving from men. You're letting him lead. You're doing all those things, but that all comes easily because you have that internal sense of safety. When you don't have the internal sense of safety, it then becomes very challenging to let him lead, to open up your heart, etc., because you are reliant on them loving you a certain way, or them choosing you, or them asking you out on another date to feel safe, rather than that being your baseline energy within yourself, and everything else is extra. When we have a lack of internal safety, we don't trust ourselves. We don't trust our body. We don't trust the messages that are coming through because we don't trust ourselves. So many of us have had past experiences where we feel like our body betrayed us, or we feel like we betrayed our body. So we then have a very murky relationship with ourselves, with our body, with our gut feelings. Maybe in the past, you feel like your gut feelings, you followed them and they did something quote unquote bad in your life, or they got you in trouble. And as a result, you've shut down those gut feelings and those intuitive messages because you're worried that they are going to lead you to danger. Another thing could be is that you put so much value on logical answers, and so safety coming from external things, safety coming from other people, that if other people don't think that what your body is saying is right, then you'll trust them over yourself. And so what you then do is you just build a muscle of not trusting yourself. You build a muscle of trusting other people's opinions over your own opinion. Like a lot of things, building your intuition is you're building a muscle. The more that you listen to it over time, the more that you trust those niggles in your body, the stronger that it gets. It's not some like overnight, oh my God, I'm now channeling and speaking to angels. It is like a slower process than that, but we are all highly intuitive. If you watch kids, they are very, very intuitive. And what's interesting, well, not interesting, what happens basically is that over time through our childhood, we shut that off. The majority of us, we can shut that off because we are told that it's weird. We're told that we don't have any invisible friends, and that's weird that we're talking to nobody. And, like that kind of whole thing. 'Cause a lot of kids will have invisible friends and they're basically like shunned by their parents or the school for doing that. We can feel those intuitive nudges, like I don't want to eat anymore, or like I want to go to bed, or whatever, like those sorts of things. And that intuitive nudge is not honored by the parents. So we then, as children, will shut those feelings down because we're like, they are getting us in trouble because we're asking to go to bed, or we're asking for food, or we're not hungry anymore and we don't want to eat anymore. Whatever, we're using really basic examples. We then can internalize that as I get in trouble for listening to these urges. So I'm just going to ignore them and I'm going to listen to what mum says, because what she says is always right. What I say isn't always right. Now, let's just remember, like, hopefully we all know context exists, nuances exist. Obviously, mum is right. If she's saying, hold my hand across the road, she's fucking right. She's right when she says, no, you can't drive the car. She's right when she says, no, you can't have a glass of wine. Like, of course she's right. When we are thinking about Maslow's hierarchy of needs and like her meeting those basic necessities. What I'm talking about is more when a child wants to express themselves in a certain way, or is asking for a need to get met, or like has this kind of urge, and we are essentially telling them the urge is wrong, or it doesn't exist, or stop listening to that, which for a lot of us we haven't experienced. We don't remember it, but for a lot of people, a lot of us also, we have experienced that. um we also could have just like internalized, we also could have just gotten scared of our intuition. I remember I used to think, well, like I used to like talk, quote unquote, talk to God when I was little, and I thought that everybody could. And then one day, like, people are like, no, I'm not ever having, like, that's weird, I'm not ever having a conversation with anybody else, like that's so bizarre, blah 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 blah. And so then I just like stopped doing it. Like, I don't even really remember, it's just like shut down that part of me. Didn't even really remember being intuitive as a kid. And it wasn't until I was doing like a psychic reading like years ago. And she was like, you're really psychic. And I was like, no. And she was like, do you ever like feel like you're talking to people? And I was like, and then I just remembered like how I would often like think I was talking to God, but I thought every child did that. And she was like, no, not everyone does that. So anyway, this isn't about me. What I'm saying is that for a lot of us, we can feel unsafe trusting our intuition as children, which then continues to manifest later in life. For many people, the other reason why their intuition gets shut down, is just because of trauma, because of micro trauma, or macro trauma over a long period of time, or one instance where that doesn't even necessarily like purposely shut down their intuition, but it causes them to disassociate from their body. And if you don't feel your body, if you can't feel the sensations in your body and you're in a constant disassociated state, which a lot of women are, a lot of men are too, if you're in that constant state, that inhibits your ability to actually feel your intuition and hear your intuition. Even if you're a man and you're or a woman and you're constantly in fight or flight, that adrenaline and cortisol, it inhibits you from hearing your intuition, because your nervous system really does need to be relaxed in order for you to hear your intuition. I keep saying that word, but like that's the topic of the conversation. It needs to be relaxed in order for you to hear your intuition. When you have all this adrenaline and cortisol firing, you're not hearing your intuition. I mean, obviously you can 100% be hearing your intuition in those moments too, but I'm saying day-to-day basis. You're not hearing your intuition, you're hearing logic, right? Because the energy is being sent away from your gut and your womb, and where those energy centers lie of what your body is sensing, and they're being sent to your extremities. So you're thinking logic, you're thinking fight or flight and flee. You're not like, what does my body think right now? Um, and then remember when I was saying being disassociated, if you are in this disassociated, numbed out, disconnected state, you obviously can't feel the messages coming through your body that you want to obviously be listening to. And then this goes for men and women, because men have sexual trauma as well. A lot of women don't know that, but the statistics are still alarmingly high for them too. Anyway, so sexual trauma for a woman causes massive imbalance in our physical body and also in our energetic body. That then further manifests, I mean, into various things that then block our intuition, not trusting ourselves, not feeling safe in our body, absolutely not feeling safe to trust those intuitive niggles. Now we're like super logistical, logical, like afraid all the time, right? We feel afraid because of obviously the sexual trauma that we've had. We are like walking on eggshells so that we don't end up in a similar situation again. But the sexual trauma heavily impacts our body's sense of balance and homeostasis, and self-trust and self-awareness and self-confidence and self-love. For all of us, we obviously have slightly different experiences when we go through sexual trauma. But as a generalization, if you've had sexual trauma in the past, and like sometimes sexual trauma doesn't need to be this big thing. There are plenty of clients that I've had where their sexual trauma wasn't that they got abused, raped, molested, all that kind of stuff. That obviously is part of it. Their sexual trauma can just be they had sex for the first time or the second time or the third time out of pressure, and they didn't really want to, but they said yes to it anyway. That also is, a more minor version, of course, of sexual trauma, but it's also very valid, because the thing with trauma to understand is the trauma isn't about the event that happened. Trauma is about how your body felt as a result of the event. It's about the perception of the event. It's how you internalized the event. So for one person, having sex when they didn't really want to, they're like, whatever, no big deal. And it really hasn't affected them at all. For another person, that's really rocked their world and it's actually affected them a lot. So it isn't about what actually happened. It's about the perception of it. It's about how your body felt in it. And it's about how you perceived the situation and internalized it that actually matters. So you might not have any massive quote unquote trauma, but please don't let that invalidate any of the physical manifestations or energetic manifestations that you're now experiencing in your life as a result of that. So things like procrastination, perfectionism, people pleasing, not being able to draw boundaries, afraid of being abandoned, going into like really reactive states and not being able to stay regulated in your nervous system, not trusting your intuition, not being able to trust yourself, super low self-worth, continuously dating the wrong guys and staying in just these like really unhealthy patterns. I could go on and on and on, but there are so many manifestations of trauma, and you don't need to have gone through hell and high water in order to have that. You could have grown up, I've said this before, this is really important. You could have grown up in a perfect childhood, quote unquote perfect. That doesn't mean that you are perfect now. That doesn't mean that you have no trauma. In fact, in my experience, the people that have grown up with the quote unquote best, because they have had a good, like in comparison, but like we're not trying to compare here is the issue. We all compare ourselves. We say, well, I had a good childhood in comparison to like so and so's story that I've read in this novel, so I've got nothing to complain about. yeah, you did have a good childhood in comparison to them, but it doesn't mean that you are not deserving of healing the wounds that you still have, because your parents can do and give you everything, and they can be the best parents in the world. And I've said this to you guys before, you will fuck your kids no matter what. I know we will. My fiance had to ask me this one time. He's like, you're not going to be one of those parents that's just like really blah, 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 like basically helicopter. And I'm like, babe, no matter what we do, no matter what I do, we are going to fuck our kids. I am going to do the absolute best that I can, but no matter what, they're going to fuck, we're going to fuck them up because it is about their perception. It is not about our perception. So your parents could think, I gave you absolutely unconditional love. And they could tell you that, like, and they could absolutely feel that in every cell of their body. And that's true. They probably did. Maybe they didn't. But let's just say in this example, they did. Let's say, like, from a third party perspective that's watched you grow up, they're like, you know what, Monica, your parents gave you unconditional love. Okay. But if you felt differently, that feeling, that perception, that is what causes the unhealthy behavior, the trauma bonds in romantic relationships, the procrastination, the perfectionism, like the self-abandonment, whatever it is, that is what causes it. It's your perception. This is what I was trying to say before. So in my experience of working with clients for going on 8 years, the clients that come to me that had the quote unquote perfect childhood, they actually have the hardest time coming to me, getting help, and healing. Because what we first have to actually like get them over sometimes, or get them to accept, is it's okay that you aren't perfect, and it's okay to ask for help. And the reason, this isn't everybody, but the reason why I say this is because a lot of the people that will come to me with this, their first thing is like, I know I had it good. I know I had it good. I know people have it worse. And they're saying that because you see in comments all the time, like, oh my God, you're complaining about this. Like, try being, try being a poor child in Africa growing up. Like, you got nothing to complain about. It's that kind of behavior. And it's very much this behavior of like, don't complain because somebody's got it worse. And it's this constant comparison. But what that does is it completely invalidates your experience. It completely invalidates what you're going through right now. And this then adds to you not trusting yourself, you not believing yourself, you not listening to yourself, which then like goes on into, well, you're not going to have a deep connection to your intuition. You're not going to be able to feel that sensation of I trust myself and I don't care what somebody else says. I'm doing this. Like, I don't need anybody else's approval. This is how it's going. It is such a good feeling to be in a place, and I can say that like I am this, and this is why I did this episode, because I was like, this is such a good place to be in. Like, I don't care what somebody says to me. I'm like, great, you can do it that way. I'm doing it this way. Whether it's about doctors, whether it's about birth, whether it's about like, I'm going through this whole like visa process again. If anyone's gotten a visa, it's like a lot, especially in the US. We had a meeting with my visa lawyer, and like, long story short, it's just a lot more than we thought, a lot more money, a lot more time. And I'm like, great, add that onto the to-do list right now because I am drowning. Anyway, point is though, is I was sitting there with two options, right? One option was basically to renew my O1B visa for another 3 years. The other option was to renew it for 1 year and then go through the green card process and do it in the US versus doing it out of country in London. And the whole thing is like, if you do it in the US, you can't travel for at least 6 months and you have to get a travel exemption and like whatever. For various reasons, I was like, I sat in the car. I went to the nursery, as in not the baby nursery, the like plant nursery, to just like go wander around with some plants, buy some more flowers. And I was sitting there and I was just really feeling into my intuition. And it was like, you know what? It actually makes no logical sense. And it's the expensive option to do a 3-year O1B renewal and then do my green card out of the country. So I would go and do it in London. I'm a British citizen. I would go and do it in London. But like, long story short, I was like, this feels, even just saying it, I could like cry. I'm like, this feels like full body yes, full fucking yes. Going and doing a 1 year and then doing my green card in the US, not being able to leave the country for 6 months, not being able to at least 6 months. And like, it may not actually happen in a year. It's like this whole thing, and it would just be quite rushed. I was like, no, it felt like this tight knot in my stomach when I thought and envisioned that one. And that feeling is so good because my fiance did not agree with me. He was like, no, 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 you should do this one, blah, blah, blah. And I like sat him down and I was like, babe, I'm going to tell you my reasons. I'm going to walk you through it. But just so you know, this is the one that I'm doing. Like, you don't get a say in this. Now, I wasn't being like a bitch about it, obviously, or like super masculine, quote unquote. Also, like, ladies, oh my God, I have a great email for you guys coming out. You can be like, stop obsessing about, I gotta do a podcast on this. Stop obsessing about feminine and masculine fucking labels. I did one on this already a few weeks ago, but it came up on my Instagram stories the other day and I did a whole fucking spiel about it. This is another great example. You can put your foot down. You can say no. You can trust that fucking feminine, intuitive niggle. And you putting your foot down and saying, no, you don't get a say in this. This is my choice. This is how I'm doing it. This is what feels right. Like, zip it. You essentially saying that, maybe not in that exact way. That is not fucking masculine. That is a woman that trusts herself, respects herself, and isn't going to just do what he says or do what she says to please them and to kind of like do the right thing and then end up resenting him and end up resenting myself. If I went and did the 1 year option and then right into the US, to the green card, but applying for it here where I couldn't leave the country, whilst it was like doing its thing, I know that I would have resented myself because I didn't trust myself and I didn't make the right decision for me. I would have then projected that resentment onto my partner. And that is absolutely not fair to project it onto him. And then that would have completely like destroyed, maybe not fully destroyed the relationship, but it would have been an issue. You not speaking up, you not trusting yourself doesn't lead to good results. It doesn't end up pleasing the other person. It doesn't end up pleasing you. It doesn't end up meaning that like, okay, everything's calm and like I've kept the peace, because what ends up happening down the road is the resentment that builds and the bitterness that builds ends up you having a fucking explosion. The resentment kills everything. You absolutely haven't pleased anybody because now that person's like, what the fuck? Why did you not say this? Why did you not just trust yourself? Like, you know what I mean? There's just so many things I could go into. Like, don't get me riled up with that. My point is the feeling of trusting your intuition and following through with that. It is such a powerful feeling. It brings you a sense of security because it's like, that is the right decision. You know, the right decision, especially when no one can tell you the right decision. Like in this visa example, like there was pros and cons to both. No one, like it was so dependent on what I wanted to do and what I felt. There was no right or wrong. It was just different. There were just two different options. And when we're in those situations, we will often just try and cling on to what makes the most logistical sense, quote unquote. But this was a prime example of the one that kind of made the least logistical sense. It's going to take the longest. It has the most work that I have to put into it because like getting a visa and getting an O1B visa is a lot of work. It has the most work. It's the most money. It's kind of like the quote unquote like dumb option. Like people wouldn't often choose this. But because I trusted my body, I know that I'm going to get the best outcome as a result. And I know that I'm going to be happy with this. So essentially, the foundational piece to reconnect to your intuition and hear it and feel it is, I'm going to give you two things. One is you have to clear the stuff in the way that is inhibiting you from actually being able to feel your body. That is number one. So Queen Alchemy, Queen Alchemy, Queen Alchemy. The doors are opening next week for the last round of the year, and also the last round of this kind. You guys are going to get a little like 10-minute what's happening with Queen Alchemy podcast episode next week that you can listen to for all of that kind of details. I've just been like, if I've just like alarmed you of being, oh my God, last round of Queen Alchemy of this kind, just hang tight for next week. That is the program. That was really loud. Sorry. That is the program for healing that the trauma and the disconnection and the unsafety in your body, so that you can start to feel your intuition, because you need that internal safety that is going to help you to also feel to feel like it is safe, to feel like it is safe to trust my intuition. You also need to be able to not have this constant feeling of unsafety in your body or in your life. So that's really important. And the nervous system regulation work also really helps with connecting to your intuition. And then the second thing that you can start doing is listening to those little nudges throughout your day, like in the little examples, what you want to eat for dinner. Which route should you take to the supermarket? Should you go down this road or this road? And then doing it and then being like, oh my God, like I do this all the time. There's a road I was saying this to my Queen Alchemy girls last round, that there's like a main road I have to get on basically to get to Whole Foods from where our house is. And in order to get to the main road, there's like two ways to get there. And like one is a little bit longer because you're kind of going like backwards before you go forwards, if that makes sense. Like you're going in the wrong direction before you go in the right direction. But if you go in option A, which is like the quote unquote right direction, there can be a buildup of like 20 cars sometimes. And you will sit in that queue for like 30 minutes because there's no traffic light to get out on the road. And it's like just the worst fucking street to get out onto this road when there's a lot of cars and it's really busy. So I'll get down to like the kind of T intersection where I have to choose, and I'll trust my intuition. And then I'll choose option B, which is like the quote unquote longer version. And then I drive past option A and I'll look and there's like a line of like 20 cars. And I'm like, yes. And it's, it's those little moments though where you are building your intuitive muscle, where it's like you trusted it, you trusted that little tiny thing. And look, the worst thing that would have happened is there wasn't any cars, right? But when you're trying to listen to your intuition, you can't think about it. You can't be like, okay, what's my intuition saying? It is like this blip. You really cannot analyze it, because if you start to try to feel it and think about it, you then are like in your head, you're not actually trusting. So it's that split second feeling that you get of like this way. Like that's the split second feeling that you get. And then you go that way. Okay. And like one way feels good, one way feels like, right? So I go the way that feels good, and then that happens. Or what could be another option? Here's a really, really basic one that all of you can start doing. What do I feel like eating for dinner? Not fucking pizza, not McDonald's, not that kind of shit. No, feel into your body. Like, what is my body craving? Is it craving red meat? Is it craving like a comforting bowl of soup? Is it craving something lighter, like a tuna salad? What is it craving? So just those two little things of like the route that you're going to take, or the time that you're going to leave the house, or like the way that you're going to do your makeup that day. Like even the other day I went to Whole Foods and I got out of my work clothes and I was in like a daggy outfit, let's say the least. And as I was leaving, I was like, I'm going to bump into somebody. I just know it. The one time I leave the house with these clothes on, I'm going to bump into somebody. And I did. Like, not a big deal by any means. But it's that little moment where it's like, I listened to that thought. I was like, okay, let's see what happens. And it happened. It's all those little tiny ways that you can really start to trust your intuition and build that muscle. Okay. The last thing that I'm going to say is on more of like a physical note for intuition is bad gut health. If you have really bad gut health, that is going to affect your intuition as well, because that gut microbiome is sending signals to your brain. So you will also struggle to feel your gut feelings. You'll probably feel that sensation of just being like foggy in your head. We all know that feeling when you're like bloated and have an upset tummy and you're just in the foulest mood. Well, at least I am. Like when I'm a little bit bloated, don't be around me. I'm like a horrible person. And so if you also have really bad gut health as well, that is also going to affect connecting to your intuition as well. And the lack of safety that you feel, or the lack of like nervous system regulation that you have, that will also affect your gut health, which then affects your intuition. So they're all kind of wrapped in. If you don't feel safe in your body, that energetically can manifest into bad gut health, because we hold the feeling of safety in our gut. So if you don't have that internal sense of safety, it will throw off your gut health as well. Okay. Just like if you're afraid of being seen, that can then cause skin issues. Okay. So, Queen Alchemy, the last round of this year, if you can't join this round for whatever reason, you can start with the gut and skin masterclass. We're going to open that in August, the gut or skin, or you can buy both, or you bundle them together. That is not a substitute for Queen Alchemy. It's a complementary thing to Queen Alchemy. If you've done Queen Alchemy, you can also do the gut and skin masterclasses, or one of them as well. It's like an add-on. Queen Alchemy heals like all of the shit that manifests into gut health and skin health, but there's no like specific class or healing session in Queen Alchemy for gut issues or skin issues. The domino effect of Queen Alchemy is healing your gut, is healing your skin. But a lot of you, this is why I made this program last year, because a lot of you, even in Queen Alchemy, were like, can you make a class that I can refer to that is like really specific for gut, really specific for skin? And so now you have this really great resource where you can just tune into the healing session whenever you need to. And it's timeless. Like you can use it over and over and over and over again. And every time you do it, you're going to get like a little bit deeper, a little bit of a different result, that kind of thing. So that's also the really great thing about it. If you have done Queen Alchemy before, but you want just like a really specific resource for it, then that's going to be it as well. All right, let's all practice connecting to our intuitions, and I will see you guys in the next episode. I'm giving you a life update at the end of the week, so tune in for that.